Asuka Town exists in the slopes of the Nara Prefecture of Kansai, Japan. The town dates to the tumulus period and is home to a few Buddhist sanctuaries and shrines. The slopes encompassing Asuka hold a few stone landmarks not inherent similar style as the Buddhist models, and their starting points stay a riddle. The greatest of these has been named Masuda no Iwafune and is around 15 feet in stature, weighing 800 tons. The stone has two square openings cut through it and is comparative in development to Ishino Horden, another old stone monument in Japan, while some accept that Buddhists may have cut the stone or that it was done in remembrance of Masuda Lake. The most famous hypothesis encompassing the puzzling stone is that it might have been utilized as a galactic perception point. The edgeline over the highest point of the stone runs corresponding to the mountain edge in the town and moreover lines up with the dusk on a specific day of the year called Spring Duyu Passage. This day generally showed the start of the horticultural season and was of significance in the lunar schedule. Spring Duyu Passage, likewise, happens 13 days after the sectional sunlight-based term, unadulterated brightness. However, most of specialists don't accept that any of this showed that the stone might have been utilized for cosmic perception, leaving the stone's motivation covered in riddle. The city of Dubrovnik lies on the shore of the Adriatic Sea, and convenience here offers all-encompassing seas including a few islands, the nearest of which are Lokrum and Daxa. Road trips to Lokrum Island are mainstream among vacationer and local people, yet no overnight remains are accessible and is habilitate. Daxa has been contemplatively evaded by the two occupants of Dubrovnik just as guests and tourists. Long-standing legends have it that a network of Benedictine priests were pursued from Lokrum by Napoleon's powers in 1798. Which prompted the priests reviling the island prior to leaving it. They did as such by strolling the edge of the island multiple times, conveying lit candles topsy-turvy and leaving a path of liquefied wax while reciting that the individuals who needed to guarantee Lokrum for their own pleasure would be doomed. After 50 years, the more youthful sibling of Emperor Franz Joseph Habsburg, Royal Maximilian, purchased Lokrum and set up a few nurseries including outlandish trees and imported flying creatures. His story turned dull in any case, after he was executed by the Republicans, and his significant other gradually lost her psyche after the passing of her dearest spouse. Guests to the island today can even now appreciate the trees planted by Maximilian and stroll close by brilliantly shaded flower beds while watching out for well-disposed peacocks. Daxa was likewise occupied by priests in bygone eras. By 1944, partisans were gathering together fascist supporters and took scores of them over to Daxa where they were executed. The individuals who remained behind in Dubrovnik were cautioned not to attempt to locate their friends and family or what survived from them. This prompted a few gossipy tidbits about apparitions and hauntings on Daxa. The bits of gossip were further fueled by the disclosure of 53 bodies on the island in 2009, which were all reburied in a recently built entombment plot. Is a fantasy objective with white sand seashores, perfectly clear waters, regular rainbows, and green mountains. On this wonderful island state, you will likewise discover red, dark, and green sand seashores. Papakolea Beach on Big Island is one of just 4 green sand seashores on the planet, suitably named Green Sand Beach. The sand shading was made by olivine gems gave up by magma. The seashore itself is cut from the side of a fountain of liquid magma, Mauna Loa, which likewise turns out to be the world's biggest volcano. The sea washes away the lighter sand, giving up the heavier olivine, guaranteeing the dark green shade. Olivine is otherwise called the Hawaiian diamond, and blended in with glass and dark pyroxene, it makes up the volcanic material of green sand beach to hinder guests from taking a portion of the green sand home with them. An unbelievable reveille has been conjured up, supposedly by park officers. The legend has it that on the off chance that anybody takes the sand home with them, misfortune will come upon them right away. Their disaster would incorporate mishaps and family misfortunes. Just restoring the sand to the seashore would stop the awful luck. This legend made numerous an offbeat traveler mail the sand that they had reclaimed to the National Park Service out of dread that the reveille would get them. Alongside green sand, individuals likewise mail or fly back igneous rock just as dark and red sand. 3. The Eye of the Sahara, otherwise called the Richat structure, lies close to Qadain in West Focal Mauritania. Despite the fact that it is a monstrous geologic arrangement, it wasn't genuinely concentrated until people spotted it from space, despite the fact that it was first portrayed between the 30s and 40s. At the point when photos taken during the Gemini IV mission were distributed, researchers at first idea the peculiar ring structure was an effect pit. Nonetheless, research didn't uncover adequate softened stone for that hypothesis to hold up. Several different speculations followed, including a wacky case that the eye is confirmation that Atlantis existed in Africa. It has been presumed that the eye is a geologic arch and contains rocks that are at any rate 100 million years of age. Geologists currently additionally accept that the eye framed more than 100 million years prior when Pangaea was destroyed and the mainlands of Africa and South America split up. It is additionally accepted that the eye emitted soon after this, making the look the structure has today. In Lake Superior you will locate the wonderful Apostle Islands, 22 altogether. It is accepted that people have occupied the islands as ahead of schedule as 100 BC, with full-time pilgrims showing up around 950 AD. The name Apostle Islands was concocted by antiquarian Pierre-François Xavier de Charlevoix, who named them after the 12 messengers, showing the biggest 12 of the islands. One of the islands, Hermit Island, is known to have been visited by Native Americans, and the primary recorded white pioneer was William Wilson, who carried on with his life as a recluse there in the wake of being removed from La Pointe. During the 1850s, Wilson and John Bell had a spat after Wilson took steps to kick Bell's canine. Ringer moved Wilson to a clench-hand battle, the outcome being that the washout would need to leave Madeline Island, where the two of them inhabited the time. As destiny would have it, Wilson lost the battle and left for Hermit Island. Wilson brought in some cash on the island by making barrels for the fishing business, however, carried on with his life alone. In 1861, a man named Benjamin G. Armstrong, who had recently helped Wilson in buying a barrel of bourbon, understood that no smoke had come from Wilson's island home in a couple of days. He let the then Judge John Bell know about the circumstance, and Bell sent an escort to investigate. Entering his little home, they discovered Wilson dead on the floor, encircled by proof highlighting murder. Naturally, gossipy tidbits about William Wilson's phantom meandering the island before long followed. His eager soul was said to have been the explanation that a house based on the island in 1895 was never possessed by its proprietors and decreased to rubble by the 1930s. Additionally depicted as the Mexican Bermuda Triangle, the zone of silence in the Chihuahuan Desert in northern Mexico may just quantify 50 kilometers over. Yet it has established its place as one of the most baffling spots on Earth. When individuals crash into the zone, radio signs quit working and compasses go haywire. In 1970, an Athena rocket dispatched from a U.S. Flying Corps base in Green River, Utah, was intended to descend close to White Sands in New Mexico. Something turned out badly and the rocket smashed 400 miles toward the south in the zone of silence in the early hours of the morning. The accident prompted the setting up of the Mapimi Biosphere Reserve by the Mexican government a couple of years later, after the recuperation activity by the U.S. Air Force. Paranormal tales about the zone began getting out and about, including cases of weird lights, unexplained creatures, fireballs, and UFOs. Some have professed to have experienced fair outsiders who request water in Spanish and afterward vanish into meager air. The Saalfeld Pixie Grottos in Germany were named the most beautiful cavern grottos on the planet by the Guinness Book of World Records. The caverns were before a mining pit called Jeremiah's Luck, in which excavators mined dark alum shale. After the mine was in the end shut, the excess caverns were changed into a fantasy world after some time, with staggering shadings dabbing its formations. The grottos were generally failed to remember, notwithstanding. After the conclusion of the mine, yet became mainstream again after its rediscovery in 1910. In 1913 a third chamber was found, and visits were offered to General Society in 1914. These visits were stopped when World War I broke out. In the many years that followed, a huge number of travelers have visited these grottos. Legend has it that during its mining days, a few excavators saw a pixie inside one of the caverns. They moved toward the pixie and she vanished. From this occurrence, the grottos are said to have procured their otherworldly name. Mauritius is all around visited due to its immaculate seashores, awesome culture, and fabulous vacation destinations. One of the most darling attractions on this wonderful island is the seven-shaded earth of Camarel. This geographical interest comprises of a little uncovered scene that presentations shades of purple, yellow, red, earthy-colored, green, blue, and violet, and is situated inside a thick woodland. It is realized that the bedrock of the scene was framed after a volcanic emission. and that the tones are because of the development of optional iron oxides and hydroxides in the endured basalt. When first looking upon the chimeral fascination, it appears like there are shadows that make the deception of a few unique tones. Nonetheless, when you go nearer to the hued earth, you understand that the shadings are genuine and that the shadows are the genuine hallucination. Furthermore, in any event, when you can combine the diverse hued sand, it will consistently settle once more into discrete layers. The interminable fire in Eternal Flame Falls in Chestnut Ridge Park, New York, isn't the just one on the planet. However, it is positively the most interesting. Legend has it that a Native American lit the fire many years prior and that the fire has been consuming from that point onward. Actually, the fire must be relit a few times when it is doused by the cascade falling past it. Explorers convey lighters with him for this very purpose. The fire consumes on account of a gaseous petrol release leaking through the stone of the little cave it is situated in. The gas has a higher convergence of ethane and propane than any of the other endless flares far and wide. And keeping in mind that geologists are as yet astounded with regards to how the NY unceasing fire is ceaselessly challenging the laws of nature, since the stone underneath the fire is not even close to the bubbling temperature, which is expected to deliver the gaseous petrol. They have speculated that the gas might be coming from a source 1,300 feet beneath the surface. They likewise accept that this cycle might be the after-effect of an unfamiliar geologic cycle brought about by the creation of the petroleum gas inside shale rock. In the Philippines, upwards of 1776 slopes take on a brilliant earthy-colored tone throughout the late spring, prepare and have been given the name of Chocolate Hills, often alluded to as the eighth wonder of the world. The Chocolate Hills is exceptional, despite the fact that there are comparative hills on the island Java in Indonesia too. The Indonesia hills have a less uniform appearance contrasted with the Philippines hills. However, legend has it that a monster cried over affection turned out badly and the slopes jumped up where his tears fell. Another legend says that two monsters occupied with their very own battle with each other and hurled stones at each other for quite a long time, at the point where they in the long run called a truce. The rocks stayed turning into the Chocolate Hills we realize today. Geologists accept the slopes were shaped because of the disintegration of limestones that had moved above ocean level and broken due to structural cycles. Some estimate that the slopes may have been coral reefs that ejected from the water after a geologic shift. Thanks for you. Please subscribe my channel.